healing wasn't something to chase, but something already living inside you, waiting to be activated. On this episode of Inner Light, we welcome Nico Jensino, founder of Totality Academy, a transformational space where body, mind, and spirit unite. Nico's work isn't just about wellness, it's about wholeness, helping people embody their truth through energetic alignment and daily integration. This is where light meets practice and health becomes sacred. Welcome to the show, Nico. It's an honor to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Mhm. So, Nico, how do you define true energy health and why is it so often overlooked in the modern healing conversations?
I think I think it just has to do with the culture in most of the world. I come from the States, from the US, and growing up here, it's very materialistic. We don't have, let's say, lineages such as Ayurveda or Chinese medicine that trace back in our history. Obviously, they're available here, but much of the conversation around health is only regarded to the physical. So for me, I personally came up through the physical world, owning a gym, training people physically, trying to improve my health and their health through physical measures, through food, through exercise. And it was only until I discovered emotional healing, let's say, or inner child work, and discovered that my shoulder pain, that no matter how much therapy I had done, chiropractors, physical therapists, and using all of the modalities, it would get better, but it would never completely resolve. And through inner child work, discovering resentment and anger that I was holding from early on, when I came to face that, when I came to know that and see that it was there, instantly the shoulder was better. And from that point forward, it opened a door that I could no longer disconnect the physical and the emotional, and we can look at the emotional as the energetic as well, right? Emotion being energy in motion and those things getting stuck. Um, as I've moved on further down this path and opened into biofield tuning, it became apparent to me that almost everything, or in a way, everything is coming from the energy signature, right, within our fields. So when it comes to when it comes to, let's say you have a problem in your foot, well, which foot, left or right? And then there's psychological themes, there's emotional themes, and of course there's the physical aspect. Maybe it's plantar fasciitis, but there's often a deeper rooted cause there. And from this energy perspective, we would look at the physical is actually the last to display the symptom. So it's manifested, it's actually rooted coming from the more etheric places, the energy field, and then eventually shows up in our body. And our body's trying to communicate that to us. And if we can address it from the mental aspect, from the emotional aspect, and from the physical aspect, we can create improvement, we can create health.
Absolutely. And how can listeners begin to feel when their energy is misaligned?
Well, that's going to come through experience. Um, seated meditation is, I think, or meditations are a bit popular now. And it's also, I think, a difficult place for a lot of people to start in this world with how much, with the speed that the world is moving at. And simply journaling. I think journaling could be one of the most powerful tools to be with themselves, to spill out or process some of their emotions and to honor what's going inside of them. And through that process, I think it becomes apparent quite quickly where we may not feel whole, where we may not feel balanced. You can look at wholeness as a feeling of balance as well.
Most people only notice energy when it's depleted. And let's bring awareness to how it actually guides us.
Yeah. So, well, I think the depletion is important because typically as humans, we don't change much until something's wrong, right? There's the saying that it becomes more painful to stay the same than it is to change. And that's actually what moves us to make those changes. So depletion can be a positive thing if we interpret it that way, if we look at it that way, because from the, it, it's going to catch my awareness a lot more than say joy, or it's going to motivate me to take different actions, to make different choices. Um, so in a way, it's always leading us, whether we interpret it as negative or positive. It just seems that we often pay more attention when we have a negative or something we interpret it as negative.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. And you emphasize integration over inspiration. What does that practically look like for someone going through a personal healing journey?
It looks like practice, it looks like repetition. So as we become aware of more of ourself, of more of our behaviors, more of our patterns, let's say that we've inherited from family, that we've learned from culture, becomes about repetition of making that new choice, making it again and again, and being compassionate with ourselves when we don't make that choice, when we make the old choice. Just like a child learning to walk, they fall many, many times before they're steady and off to the races. But they're not focused on all of those falls. They're focused on the next step. And I think as we mature, we get caught up and we start focusing on those falls instead of focusing on the next step.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And what keeps people stuck in processing instead of embodying?
Well, I think that comes down to our narrative, our personal myth or story that we hold of ourselves. And we've started to root our identity in some of these falls, right? If we're going to use that analogy of a child that's falling and we've started to focus on those falls all the time, we've rooted our identity in these falls, in the past, if you will. And that starts to inform the future. And we start to lose our ability to imagine ourselves in the future. The majority of people that I've worked with, it is a process to develop or rediscover, let's say, their imagination. I would view imagination as a skill. It is practiced, it is inherent as a child, and it tends to disappear, especially if we're taking in much from the outside and not generating it from the inside. Like a child that can take two sticks and make a whole entire show with two sticks, pretending that they're action figures or whatever they may be. They have an incredible capacity for imagination. And as adults, we actually need to practice cultivating that because we need to we need to imagine who we are, let's say, without this illness or without this symptom or without the pain. Who will we become? What will life look like? And that becomes difficult. And if people don't put energy and time into that aspect of it, then they're going to keep in this loop of healing. Um, I saw it myself on my journey. We get into the healing and then we want to heal everything. And for me, it came to a point as spirituality moved into life. I think it's an experience along the way that most people encounter. Faith and spirituality comes through experience. It doesn't come through cognition or theory. And excuse me, as we move forward in that, it to me, health becomes a realization of wholeness, that you were never broken, that there's no pieces of you missing. And then it becomes about the future and it becomes about that next step. like the child focused forward, not backwards into the past. And so as we take a practice to really envision and imagine what we can be and who we would be without this. But if we don't put any energy into there, we're not going to grow into that new space because we can't see where we're going. We can't even comprehend who we would be. And so it becomes almost an identity crisis. And unconsciously, we hang on to who we are. In a way, it feels like a death. The ego, the identity doesn't want to lose itself. So it hangs on. And if we are rooted in some of these falls, if you will, then we will continue a loop of healing. I think the healing journey, as we go through the healing, that awareness is the first phase, and then we take actions to make new choices, and those actions and those new choices are based on who we envision we're becoming, right? Like if we set goals, we're going to make choices that support those goals. But if I don't have goals or a vision into the future of who I want to be, then I won't make those choices.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And like so many chase breakthroughs but forget the embodied piece. This can really shift that.
Agreed.
Mhm. So, in your work, what role does the nervous system play in sustainable healing? And how do we begin to regulate it holistically?
So, as far as the nervous system, I think it's very popular right now. Um, but in a way, it's how we're interacting with the world. It's our senses, and through creating, there's a million things that can regulate your nervous system, and they may be different for different people. They may be different for you on different days. I think all the techniques and pretty much laid out there. Breath work, meditation, yoga, journaling. We have numerous ways, trauma release exercise or tremors. So it's about finding what works for you and creating that space. Someone I've learned from, Paul Chek, he has a 4 doctor system. And it would be about determining which you need to spend time with. Let's say movement, Movement, Dr. Quiet. Do you need space alone? Do you need connection? These are all ways of regulating the nervous system. Sometimes being alone can be the most powerful regulation. Sometimes having a good chat with a friend that you trust can regulate you as well. So what I like to do is show people the different ways to have them become aware of how they feel when things are happening, when they're having different interactions, and really giving them the tool set to know what they need in that moment to nurture themselves. And so I think it's difficult to say like this is the technique or this is the way to go. I don't I don't prefer that route. It tends to try and lump, or box people in a way, that this and creates rigidity, that this is the way it must be done, when instead it's here's an open source format, and you can use any of these tools at your disposal when you feel you need them. And as you grow more aware of yourself, you discover which tool you need in which scenario, like a construction worker building a house. He can't use a hammer all of the time, and he can't use a saw all of the time. He needs to know which tool for which task in which moment. And so my goal is to help people develop their skills and their toolbox so that they're able to construct their own house.
That's amazing. And Can you share a technique or a habit that supports nervous system harmony?
Yeah. Um, Simply chanting or humming seems so silly. Many of us maybe do it without even realizing we're doing it. We're walking around, we're whistling, we're humming. Just taking a few minutes to lay down, stop what you're doing, taking a deep inhale, and just humming. Or even more, allow your body to make the noise that it wants to know, that it wants to make, right? The body knows. When a woman gets pregnant or you cut your arm, you don't consciously think about growing the baby or healing the cut on your arm. You may do things to support it and take care of it, but the body knows what to do and the body does its thing. So even we know humming and vibration stimulates the vagus nerve, stimulates that response to get us to relax and calm down. So, and this becomes a great practice as well for expression because we can see where our mind gets in the way, and we want the noise that comes out of us to be a certain way, or we run into those edges where we think it should be different or it can't make that sound, or once all the should comes in, it should go like this, it should be this way, versus can you take a deep inhale and just let out whatever noise the body wants to make and do it again and do it again and see if it changes. So it might change each breath as well, and follow your body and listen to the body instead of direct it and tell it, oh no, like we need to make a growl or we need to make a high pitched hum. We need to make it sound nice. So yeah, it goes back into that theme of being boxed in versus that freedom of self and really getting to know self.
And this ties science to soul. Like the nervous system is our anchor. And let's ground this episode there.
Okay.
Mhm. We live in a world of constant stimulation. How do you guide people to protect and replenish their energetic boundaries in daily life?
Through these practices, through setting some goals, through accountability and support with each other, and looking at it like a bank account, right? Every time I make deposits, it adds up. Every time I spend, it deducts. So, there may be some days that life, the way life goes, there's not as much space for it. And there's other days where there's more extra space for it. So, again, to create that flexibility, support someone in finding that flexibility in themselves, um, to use the tools and to do it when they have the space and when they know they need it.
Definitely. And what signs indicate that someone's energy field is porous or overwhelmed?
One of the best things I've discovered is biofield tuning, which is a process of using a tuning fork within a 6 foot radius around a person, because that's about the average size of everybody's field that's emitting from them. And when you move a tuning fork through that field, it becomes quite apparent. The fork will actually change. It may raise in tone, it may drop in tone, it may deaden, it may skip. So it's very clearly showing disharmonies or resistances in the electric flow of the field. That is a great way to identify some holes or porous nature. And then understanding what things open me up, but I think this is we can look at energy like a language, right? And learning to speak that within ourselves. So as I become more aware of my own energy, then I can start to also feel where there may be gaps or spaces or deficits, depletion in areas of that. But before that, having, let's say, a practitioner like myself run a tuning fork through your field, and it works remotely as well. I'm in the States, and I've worked on my friend that's in Greece here, and someone with a tuning fork is able to pick out that around a specific age in the area of the heart, there may be, let's say, 19 years old, all of a heartbreak, and boom, that memory arises to process, to be dealt with. So having someone else support you and help you and go identify those holes and maybe what kind of emotions or memories are there stuck in the past where part of our consciousness or our unconscious has been stuck and focused on a child that's left part of itself on the ground where it fell, that it didn't bring its whole self back up to move forward.
Hmm. And boundaries are more than saying no. Like they are about energetic sovereignty. And let's explore that.
Yeah. I mean, how would you like to explore that in terms of in terms of boundaries and energy? Hmm, what would be the best way to describe that? I mean, again, we're going back more to the beginning of the conversation where we have mental, emotional, and physical. And I think it becomes quite apparent to everyone around physical boundaries, right? We become aware of people in our space when we feel violated. Um, but until we start to have an energetic language and interpret ourselves as being energetic, because if we're grounded in the physical and material world, some of this energetic discussion doesn't seem doesn't seem plausible. And so, if we can look at that, it's mirrored. The physical, the mental, and the emotional, or the energetic, they all work in similar ways. So if I can establish physical boundaries and I can understand them and understand when someone moves into my space or comes into my yard without permission, then I can start to be aware of when that's happening emotionally. Say when a family member, you know, is is becoming overbearing and I don't have the space for it right now. But I've been taught or conditioned that it's family. So you have to do it. You just let it be or you deal with it. And I think those can be some of the more difficult ones as well, learning to establish those emotional or energetic boundaries. And it can be done, it can be most apparent, I think, maybe with a work and a boss and a job with coworkers or with family members and understanding the limit between yourself and them and what you have currently to give, right? If your family member wants $5,000 for a problem, but you only have three and you don't have enough money for rent next month, if you give them all of it, should you give them all of it? And I think that's a physical, like, we can see that clearly. Like, no, I will not give all of my money because I can't right now. I don't have, I'll help you if I can find other ways or solutions, but I cannot do this. And so even knowing when that's happened emotionally, let's say even with our spouse, our relationships.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. And for someone who is ready to step into a more integrated, vibrant version of themselves, where should they begin?
They should find a community or friends or a coach or a program, something in which they'll create a commitment to, something that's going to support them. I know personally and through observation that humans are meant to do this together, not alone. The lone wolf is an archetype I see quite often, and I've seen it in myself. And I see that when we use the support of others, if I join a program, I'm more likely to follow through. I'm more likely to remain connected into it and be accountable. So I think for someone looking to make that step, for them to find something that resonates with them, something that shows up in their world that speaks to them, something they're curious about. Curiosity is a good sign as well. Maybe something that makes them a little nervous. Fear and excitement can show up as the same sensation in the body, like getting on a roller coaster. You're nervous, you're excited. It's a little bit of all of it, or getting up on stage. And so for them to actually trust that sensation, to follow their curiosity, and to choose something that resonates with them in that moment, right? If you're going to look at it all as different tools, well, we're not all going to start learning the same craft or skill. Someone may start as a carpenter, someone may start as a mechanic for cars, right? These are just analogies, but so someone may start with tuning forks and sound healing. Someone may start with physical exercise or tremoring and releasing that from the physical body. And so ultimately, I think it's following that curiosity and taking a little leap of faith and going into something that calls to them.
Listeners love real, accessible takeaways. And let's end with clarity and empowerment. Nico Jensino reminds us that energy is not a trend, it's our original language. Healing isn't about fixing yourself, it's about remembering who you are beneath the noise. So breathe deep, come home to your body, and let your inner light